England has fallen. What a time we are living in. This is a rather impromptu show, and I know, obviously, I'm not dressed in normal attire here or anything of that ilk. And part of the reason for that is because, well, there's been a lot of things that have been going on with me recently, but more about that in another video. First of all, I want to welcome any and everyone that watches this live or on the replay, of course, going forward in time. No notes, no nothing. So this is completely, just completely ad lib. Um, you may have noticed recently that the United Kingdom, England, has been listed as one of the most, well, let's put it this way, it's on the watch list of where not to visit. At a time where people should be rallying around and enjoying the Olympics and getting set for what's next and for the encouragement that's going on and for the next step, shall we say, in our human journey, we are more at war and at throat and unrest than has been in quite some time. And in this video, I want to address three things, really. First of all, we want to look at why the riots are happening. What is actually the cause? The root cause. What can we do? And what do we do about this? So the first thing, of course, is, for those of you that don't know, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. In London, in Southport, in several major cities in Yorkshire, and one more was added to that list last night, which I forget. There have been riots, extreme violent riots, where people have been arrested, where over 800 people have been arrested, I think, within this last week alone. And there's a lot of people, obviously, that are calling this acts of race, acts of racism, acts of terrorism, acts of all sorts of things. And I really want to stay away from, the whole he said, she said kind of mentality, and to actually look at what's really, really going on. So you could say, okay, well, the murder of the three children, the three young girls at the Taylor Swift dance school or whatever it is, was the big thing. The eight other people that were injured, you could say a number of things. And again, if people have rightly said recently, there was a young boy that was murdered, a young black boy, and we have to put that in context as well, that was murdered, what, 2 or 3 months ago, that nobody's talking about now, but now we're all in uproar and whatever else, and people believe that's the root of the problem. It's not the root of the problem. The root of the problem, I firmly believe, having watched this and evaluated this from, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, is the fact that the people of the West, probably the people of the world, but certainly the West, are absolutely jaded. They're absolutely sick and tired of political stuff. They're sick and tired of hearing about religious stuff. They're sick and tired of hearing about socio-political stuff. They're sick and tired about the governments and how terrible the governments are, not only here, but in the United States. They're sick of Biden. They're sick of Trump. They're sick of being forced to be divided. They're sick of being forced to choose. They're sick of being forced for the next great sort of idea and ideology and the woke culture that's going on. They're sick of the LGBTQI. They're sick of the noise. They're sick of social media. On and on and on and on and on it goes. That's what they're really sick of. This is not an isolated incident. Have you ever heard the song by Casting Crowns? It's called A Slow Fade. It's like putting the frog in a pot of sort of warm water. You turn that heat up gradually, the frog will slowly cook itself to death. You put it straight into boiling water, it'll jump straight out, but it'll cook itself to death in the slow fade conditions. That's what's happened with society. And people say, why is it so important to study history? Why on earth would I want to study history? Because if you know your history, you'll know again that this is not a new event. This is not an isolated event. This is resembling, as I said several months ago, what the French Revolution looked like. The people in revolutionary Paris, and there was a number of revolutions that went on. The revolution of 1789 in particular was one of the most brutal and bloody because the people had had enough. They were seeing the kings and queen and everyone else and all the aristocracy and all the, the top dogs and They were seeing them having a ton of food where for many others there were none. And they were struggling, they were suffering. And in one meal, they would eat what a family of 8 would last over 11 days. And then they would throw out the excess. They never thought about giving it away. That is part of the reason that people are struggling right now. It's just different. It's not so much that we're struggling for food as such, even though food prices are insanely high right now, but it's other ways. People are complaining now because the taxes are too high, the mortgages are too high, the interest rates have gone absolutely balmy, and nothing seems to be being done. And this is the thing, you look at the BlackBerry riots of 2010, this is more or less the exact same thing that happened over and over and over again. It is literally a case of, as the Tao Te Ching says, when you abuse the people too much, the people revolt. Leave the people alone. And this is something that happens over and over and over and over again. Do you know that taxation was only ever used historically when a king was going to go off to war? That's the only time it was used. And it was the only time it was used because he needed some pennies, some moolah, some luga, in order to be able to fund that war. But aside from that, there wasn't this great taxation that went on until the governments got involved, until the kings got involved and said, you know what, we actually could make a heck of a lot of money out of this for doing absolutely nothing. And I've said it over and over again. If people on the whole and en masse stood up in unity, and stop fighting against each other. Stop fighting whether you're a liberal or a Democrat. Stop fighting whether you're conservative or liberal or whatever you are over here. I mean, it's really interesting the fact that in the United States and in the UK, we are now looking at third-party options, obviously with Reform UK here in the UK, with Nigel Farage, and I think they've got some other option now coming to light in the United States, which is Jesse the Body Ventura, former wrestler. You know, his sort of ideology and movement, as is Donald Miller, who we've referenced a number of times on this show. This is happening worldwide because people are absolutely exhausted. They're sick and tired of being played games with. They're sick of being told what they can and can't think. They're sick and tired of being told what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. They're sick of and tired of having their intelligence tested. They're sick and tired of being almost forced to believe and swallow what is inherently wrong. And I know personally that right and wrong are matters of, it's our own decision what right and wrong is. But there are universal laws that are right and wrong as well. And when you look at it and you say, okay, well, we'll take the spiritual aspect out of it, take the God aspect out of it, and I'm going to go all over the place, folks. So if there's times that you want to dip in and dip out, I don't mind. But if you want to ask any questions, any comments, if you've got anything that you want to put up there, I'll put up the comments section so you can fire your comments in or anything like that. But here's the thing: when it doesn't benefit society, when it doesn't benefit biologically, when it doesn't benefit spiritually, when it doesn't benefit evolutionary, when it doesn't anything, then you've really got to look at it and say, is this really what's going on? Is this really something that's going on that's happening? And then, of course, you've got the other aspect as well, which is the spiritual aspect. And Matthew 24, and a lot of people will quote this. And I want to exercise extreme caution with Matthew 24 because a lot of religious preachers will quote this and say, well, it's the end times, it's the end times, it's the end times. And it reads something along these lines. I haven't necessarily got a Bible right in front of me. Otherwise, I would give you direct, but I'll give you the paraphrase. In the end times, brothers will go against brothers, sisters will go against sisters, mothers will go against their daughters, fathers will go against their sons. The love of many will grow cold. There will be wars and threats of wars. There'll be riots breaking out left, right, and center. There will be this, there'll be that, and there'll be other. There'll be storms, there'll be disasters, there'll be earthquakes. Don't know if you can hear it, but actually we've had probably one of the wettest years here in the UK, probably the world, on record. And that's not me just saying that. It's very easy to jump on the bandwagon and say, you know, well, we must be living in the end times. We're always living in the end times. I don't know when they'll be, don't know what, whatever. But I am noticing what's going on. I am noticing what's happening. as are many. I've noticed that more and more people have been returning to Jesus, and people in the Christian church and Catholic church are all saying, well, this is amazing. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. And I say, well, hang on. This isn't necessarily the best thing in the world because of what is the motive behind it. What is the intention behind all the people returning to Jesus? If it's a genuine return to Jesus, hallelujah. In terms of what Jesus really represents, not the way the Christian church has become now in the modern time. So that's what's really going on. This is not just an isolated incident where 3 girls were killed and all of a sudden the world is rioting. No, don't be stupid. Wake up. What's really going on is people are sick and tired of being played games with. They're sick and tired of having their intelligence tested. They're sick and tired of expectations being laden upon them that are equivalent, mentally at least, to the pharaohs and the Egyptians. It's like asking us to build pyramids by accepting the next cultural thing, the next evolutionary thing, the next great thing that's going on. Here's the thing, actually, and this came to me when I was getting dressed for the show. I know you wouldn't believe it, but this is what came to me, and it was this. Human beings have become so fixated on the external, the progression of humanity, the progression of, technology, the progression of society, the progression of this. We're not in progression. We're in retardation, which is actually the correct terminology of that word, not as it's been made to become. We're not in a progression. We're in a regression more than anything else. Ask yourself, look around yourselves. When people are saying, well, this is the happiest time on the face of the planet. And you're asking yourself the question, really? Is it? Is it really the happiest time on the planet? People have got more now than ever before. They've got more free time than ever before. And yet, they seem to be the most miserable that they've ever been. Ever. Why? What is the answer to this? Well, one of the answers is because, again, I was looking at it and I jotted down, have we gone past the realm now of the mind, body, and soul stuff, the life coaching stuff, even the Florence Scovel Shin stuff where we do the affirmations and we look at it from a spiritual point of view? No, that's exactly what we need to do. And people say, I'm immediately tuning out. Just wait a second, because I'm not going to baby you and I'm not going to treat you stupid. I wouldn't insult your intelligence. What the world needs is for people to deal with their own crap in here and in here. When you have a peaceful person globally, you have a peaceful world. The reason that the world is sick is because the mind of man is sick. The world is sick because humanity is sick, is ill. You look at the stuff that's on TV now, The Boys, prime example of that. Edgier and edgier and edgier content. That people are like, this is amazing. Game of Thrones, Highlander, Outlander, whatever else is out there. The films that are now being put forth. Again, all pushing the edge, being forced to accept a woke culture, being forced to accept, at least on paper, a biological man identifying as a woman and vice versa. Now, I have friends of mine that are going through this personally, and every single one of them, whether I've worked with them as a friend or I've worked with them as a client, every one of them has had severe mental health issues. And I firmly believe, as I have always done, and I've given the evaluation, you can see it on this channel several times over, what is actually going on for the majority of people that believe they've got gender dysphoria. And I say that unsympathetically, I say that unapologetically, but I love the people. So what do we do about it? What is the right thing? Is it right that people are now protesting and killing each other? And it's not right. But it was foretold thousands of years ago. It's not a surprise. It's just scary to be living through it. I would love to say to you, the best thing we can do is hope and pray. Things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. And I've got friends, obviously, that talk about this, partners, folks on this show that talk about that. They will eventually and eternally. Of that, I have no doubt. But I think the best thing that we can do right now is to prepare and is to manage ourselves, and hopefully by managing ourselves for the 3-4 people that are seeing this live. And I appreciate you. By the way, again, we invite you, if you have any comments to ask or any comments to put in, any questions to ask, please do feel free to put them in. Hopefully I will see them. I'm on StreamYard right now, obviously, so we don't always see all the comments and everything, but I will certainly do my best. It's an impromptu show, so, But it's so sad to see a country divided by politics. It's so sad to see a country divided by race and ethnicity and beliefs. And if it is genuine the case that this has become a religious war, and by that I mean, that folks, immigrants coming over into the country, seeking asylum, seeking help, but bringing with them their religions, all of this, all that you have to accept, folks, whether you are black, white, green, pink, a Martian from outer space, someone from the land of Dudley, I don't care. But you have to accept that you are coming into another country that has opened their arms to you and said, we welcome you, we encourage you to be here, we love cultural diversity, I love the foods, I love curries, I love the people, okay? But here's the amazing thing. This is a country that's welcomed its doors to you. Don't take the piss, okay? Don't attack the hands that's feeding you. Don't beat up, essentially, the people that have welcomed you in. And I said this to a very small minority, because that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about here. The LGBTQI movement has grown so much because it's been mass funded, because children have been manipulated, because, it's like the words just do not come to me. The same with the terrorism stuff. It was a small minority. It's not all of Islam. It's not all Muslims. It's not all Christians, Jews, Hindus, or Sikhs. It's not all Buddhists that are going to war. The problem is the media paints them as so. And then you've got Starmer that turns around and says, well, this was an attack by the right, extreme rightists, because you're an extreme leftist, you pillock. And we know that. We can see that. BBC is an extreme leftist. ITV is an extreme leftist. A lot of the media companies are extreme leftist. When you recognize that you are being played and that there is an agenda going on here, you will recognize that that's the answer. That truly is the answer. Is look who is playing you. A friend of mine shared a great comment this morning. And it was when 2 black ants and 2 red ants are put in a jar. They do nothing. They sort of live harmoniously. But when you shake up the jar, they will attack each other and kill each other. And that's much the same as what's going on in our world right now. Look at who's shaking up the jar. You think it's Trump? You think it's Biden? Who is above Trump and Biden? Where are the corporations? Where are the businesses that are funding their political campaign? I have seen celebrities now that have fallen from grace based on what they are willing to do for horrific things in the United States. And I've seen the exact same thing here in the UK. You're being played. Now, why did I bring up the French Revolution earlier on? Why did I bring up American revolutions earlier on? Or if I didn't, I should have done. Because when people realize they're being played, as the folks, shall we say, Aborigines here in the United Kingdom, the original hospitants of the United Kingdom, when you realize you're being played, that's when people start going to war. When you have exercised all possibilities, you've tried to talk it through, you've tried to converse, you've tried every possible means at your disposal This is what happened with the working men getting the vote back in the 1800s. They tried absolutely everything. The Peterloo Massacre happened. Thousands and thousands were killed, cut down where they stood. What did that do? If you know your history, it only fueled the campaign all the more, which opened the door for the working man to get the vote. Guess what? That opened then the door for the woman to get the vote, or for the women to get the vote, which opened the door for many others to get the vote. It all starts with a ripple. I don't know if you're seeing this at the moment, but there is a major shift that has at least been attempted back to the right. Now, to you, that's the left because my camera's mirrored, but to the right. There is a shift that is happening, and this happens every sort of 10 years, and it has really done pretty much since the 1940s, 1950s. So you had extreme right in the 1950s, so people get bored with that. When there is rule regulation and people know what's coming, they know what to expect, people get bored. So what happens? They shifted left, which was the 60s, time of free love, the swinging 60s, you could go and sleep with whoever you want. The 70s, things settled down a little bit more and went to the 80s, which again was extreme right. Into the 90s, which was extreme right, and then you start to swing back, and that's when the LGBTQI movement started to come out. So I know I'm getting a little bit off track here, and we've already covered 21 minutes or whatever it is. And I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate your patience and your thoughts. The big question you're asking yourself right now, as many are, is what do we do about this? And as I said earlier, I think the answer is go within and start working on yourself. Don't be worrying about running and doing protest marches and peace rallies or anything like that, because they ain't going to work. Only when the mind of man is peaceful, only when the mind of humans is peaceful, only when the world is peaceful, will we have a peaceful world. It is vital that we stop looking externally and start looking internally. What's really going on? What's really happening? It is paramount if human beings are going to survive. I don't put much stock in human beings. If many of you have heard my shows before, you'll know I believe that if God had one mistake, it was making human beings. That and wasps and seagulls. They serve no purpose. They make great topsoil, but that's about it. If human beings weren't here on the whole, the world would thrive. Human beings are the only ones that convince themselves, that delude themselves that they are another gender, that want to sleep with the same sex, that look at a butthole and think, I'd love to stick something in there. And it filters down through the genealogy. I can take you all the way back. That's a whole other show. But the reality is, if the world does not manage and deal with itself, we're done. Because this is not going to get any better. It started in London. Next, I believe, was Southport. Next was Yorkshire. And up and up and up and up and up the scale it goes. Scotland is on watch right now to see whether a war is going to break out. The governments need to stop. Because you're not doing any good where you are right now. All you're doing is adding more fuel to the fire. Governments, if you can hear my voice, which I doubt very much you can, I don't know, people watching this, you may be able to help. But in the words of Nigel Farage, you need to go. You need to go. Because people have lost trust in you, they've lost faith in you. We recognize that you're playing games with us. And we're tired of it. We're tired of it. The best thing that you could do, the best thing actually for governments to do right now would be to completely be abolished, for every single governmental official to go away for the next 4 years unpaid, and let's see if they would do the same amount of work unpaid as they do when they're being paid 80 grand, 90 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is, of our tax money. Let's see how genuine they are. Let's see how many would stay. Let's see how many haven't come from Oxford or Cambridge or Eton. Let's see how many people genuinely, because if you think right now that these are the people that you want running your country, these old tired dogs that sit in government arguing about things left, right, and centre every single day, getting nothing accomplished, saying, hallelujah, you were part of a party. Great, wonderful. I'm just so thankful we have people like Russell Brand, Jordan Peterson, Piers Morgan, Elon Musk, that are now speaking out against it. I was asked the other day, why is the woke culture now in so much of a difficult position? Let's put it that way. And I said, well, the answer's simple. The woke culture is in a difficult position right now because government came in. They said, okay, we want people to have equality. Fine, okay, that's fine. I mean, there's people tattooed up to their eyeballs that I wouldn't give a job to, but that's another story. But they said, we want people to have equality. Right, okay. We're going to give you a shot. We're going to give you a chance. And the thing is, they had that chance. And then when they started introducing drag queens into schools and encouraging young children to fondle themselves and others, again, it was a minority. But I, like many, refuse to have my rights taken away from me where I have to accept a man dressing like a woman and to be comfortable with it, to be fine with it. I thought the answer, quite honestly, was being silent about this and not speaking out against it. When you're for things, it empowers you. When you're against things, it disempowers you. I was very much against the LGBTQI culture because I saw what it had become. They call it Pride Fest. Well, the problem with Pride Fest is it comes before a fall. And I have people that love and are in this, and I love you dearly. You have to know that. But I look at the organizations, I look at the motives behind these things. I look at the why this is going on. I look at why this is happening. I look at more and more why people are having issues conceiving naturally. I look at more and more why people are having pornography addiction. More and more people are being unfaithful. More and more people are straying. Less morality, less of everything, apparently. But the crazy thing about it is we never lose anything. It just transitions. And the morals are still out there. The lessons are still out there. The care is still out there. The genuineness is still out there for the majority of people. But it is time to wake up and to realize that if this does not stop, it is the end of humanity. Because this is where it starts. Where do you think it ends? Yes, they bring in the military. Great. Our numbers outnumber the military easily. They do that in the United States. I've said that exact same thing before. All it takes is an entire state to march upon the White House. And I don't advocate this in any way, shape, or form. But I understand why it's being done. I understand why it's happening. It's happening because people are sick and tired of being played with. They're sick and tired of being played games with. They're sick and tired of being told what to believe, having their values taken from them, being told that you'll be arrested, being encouraged to dob other people in like Nazi Germany. That's what's happening in Scotland. There's posters in Glasgow Central that encourage people, if you hear anybody speaking hate speech or anything against a political agenda, you arrest them. So folks, if I disappear, you know why. You know why I disappeared. And I encourage you to share this message. This 29-minute message. I don't know that we're playing by the same rules of the game anymore. Something has changed dramatically. It started recently with the stuff that happened in Paris, the controversy that was there. Believer or non-believer, you need to know this: God will not be mocked. Whether you believe or not, I don't really care. I don't sit under the modern Christian church, so this is not coming from a place of, oh, well, he's a Christian or he's a religious person, or any of that kind of bullshit. Let's put it out there. Let's speak in plain English. But the fact of the matter is, God will not be mocked. And for many people, I didn't feel this when I saw the opening ceremony. I didn't see the Last Supper things, which is really surprising because I'm usually very perceptive. But what I did see was, again, men dressing as women, it being accepted. Children gyrating around with grown men, and that's been a whole conversation that's happened recently. The controversy that surrounded these Olympic Games is ridiculous. People being hurt. In the lead up to it, people being paralyzed. Now it seems to have settled down until the next one. The problem, when people say to me, and I'll finish on this, is it love or lust? Many people get them really, really confused. Go to 1 Corinthians 13 if you really want to know what a true definition of love is. Because love is something that doesn't resemble what we've got now. When people say love is love, I say no, lust is lust. It's wanting something you can't have, i.e., a man with a penis wanting a vagina and baps. If this country is to get back on track, we need to accept what is. We need to really start looking at what's going on. What are we watching? What are we surrounding ourselves with? What are we feeding our minds with? And I know it's easy to say, even for myself, I enjoy playing Assassin's Creed. There, said it. Hallelujah. A lot of my stories that I'm writing as novels were inspired by Assassin's Creed. I love the history element of it. I know that history was bloody and brutal. Okay? I'm very much aware of it. The only way the Christian church survived, if you take God out of the situation, was because of blood and bloodshed. Or the knife and bloodshed, sword and bloodshed, gun and bloodshed, fill in the blank and bloodshed. I know that. I understand that very, very well. But for the sacrifice of many, I would gladly turn away from Assassin's Creed. I would gladly turn away from TV, media, a lot of the stuff that's there. You need to wake up. You really need to wake up. Because if you don't, this is just the start. This is just the start. And okay, you may not be able to, be stopped by the military. You may not be able to be stopped by police because there's far too many. Far too many. But when the government then stops bringing in bumper crops from other countries and martial lawing your lands, if you want a reference, as Donald Sutherland said when he was doing an interview, watch the Hunger Games. Watch where this goes. What I'm saying, if I'm saying anything at all today, is riots are not the answer, and nor is government. Only when we have peaceful mind, peaceful body, peaceful soul, will we have a peaceful world. And that's where we need to begin. It is my aim and endeavor to put out more videos with regards to this. And I hope they will encourage me and support me in doing so. We've been through our own health battles and struggles this year, which I'm going to talk about in a later video, because this one's already gone on way too long. but you need to take a stand against injustice, but in the right way. And that's all I got to say about that.